MrBeast created a website called TeamSeas, which is a great place to essentially help donate to clean up the oceans. But what I want to do in today's video is redesign this website. Well, not entirely, but just change it a little bit to see how we can make better conversions, better user interfaces, and a better user experience. So let's jump into it. The MrBeast team has put together a great website here for TeamSeas. There's lots of great information here, like the tracking of the pounds, as well as the call to action to actually donate. But for me, it's a little bit overwhelming. This design with the big news here, as well as this tracking and sign up in red at the top, is just too much information in such a small area. MrBeast is amazing at creating clear, straight to the point videos. But for the website here, I think that we can look at the user experience and the user interface and make it a way better. We also have this section here where people are donating, showcasing the amounts that they are donating and the social feed. So all of this we're going to have a look at. We're going to see what we can do to clear it up and make it so that you get better conversions, which means better donations to the TeamSeas organization. The first thing I'm going to do is remove some of this additional content that we're having on the header section here. The hero is probably the most important section for a website, and we want the call to action to exist in the hero section. So I actually move it up to the top right. One of the things that a lot of users do is read website in a Z pattern. This means that they start at the top left, they move their eyes to the top right, and then they move their eyes to the bottom left and then the bottom right. This means that when you're designing a website, it's often good to create the content around the Z pattern, which I'm doing right over here. I'm moving away some of the additional clouds and actual birds just to make room for the text here, which I'm making larger and on the left-hand side. I want to align this with the section here on the right, which I want to redesign to be a bit more clear, because currently the actual donation itself feels a little bit bland and difficult to read, and I think there's a lot that could be used to basically improve this section. So what I do is actually create a new circle system here that looks and feels a little bit more like the logo itself, but also represents the donation section, similar to basically the amount of weight that you're helping remove from the ocean. So for each circle, they get gradually a little bit bigger, so you feel like you're making a more significant impact to the seas, which I think is a great thing to do. I reuse some of the colors that's basically set throughout the design of the website as well, and I think that this now is a lot more clear as to what's happening. I also bring the logo in because I think that it sort of feels like you're joining the team as part of TeamSeas and contributing to it. And so I also updated the custom amount here, changing the text from other to enter an amount. I think this makes more sense, and then I added in the icon there as a reference that you're entering the amount of pounds or weight you're trying to remove. I made the next button a bit larger so that people know that's the next step in selecting this call to action. And I also added in an arrow, so depending on whether you select a pre-selected amount or a manual amount, you select the next button. I moved the ribbon to the top right because it had a bit more space there, and updated the text so that it all fits in nicely. And now I'm pretty happy with that section. So I want to move about some of the other content to make use of the new content we have in this hero section. So I move the sun over to the left hand side and I reposition the text, and I also add back in the logo, but this time I make it white with the logo on the left hand side because I think this stands out a lot more than the blue that existed previously. You'll notice that there is a lot more spacing between each section now, whether it is the information on the left hand side or the join TeamSeas on the right. So I want to do the same here for the big news, which I think wasn't showcased very well before. But to do this, we have to make sure that all the elements around these sections are basically contained properly in respect to all the other content on the website. So I'll make sure that we're following that column design here and reposition some of the items here just a little tiny bit to make sure that they're working. I also tried a few variations for showcasing the amount of pounds removed. I came up with a simple one here with a background color for the pounds removed, just so that it's clearly defined and one of the boldest statements on the page, which I think is an amazing thing to be proud of. I start adding back some of the additional information to the page now, but I do this by utilizing some of the colors that are already existing on the page, so they both stand out while blending into the page quite nicely. I tried the orange, but I found the dark purple maroon color seems to work best here, and then I just move about the content and add in the sign up button back into the header section there. Rather than using outlines for all the buttons, I've just used a different shade or tint to essentially represent them, because this is more consistent throughout the website as a whole, and I think it looks more clear cut. I add back in the menu button that we had at the top right there with the same sort of approach, and now we're more or less done with this hero section, which I think looks great. We can add in the big news, which I think really needs to stand out a lot because it's something that we can celebrate about reaching this 30 million milestone. So I positioned it right here in the center, really celebrating the success of all the people that made this possible, almost with the fish and the people drawing attention to it, while it also follows that Z pattern that we've been designing for the header and the hero section as well. With this more or less done, let's just clean up the spacing just a tad to make sure that everything looks comfortable and has room to breathe, and we're more or less done with the design, which I think looks great now in comparison to the previous design. So let's take a look at both designs back to back to see what we originally came up with and where we are at now. Now here are the two designs, and as you can see, a lot of the content from this original design has been brought up here above the fold, and the call to action, which is the join TeamSeas, is now off to the right hand side. I've redesigned this section here because previously it felt like it was all blending together. So if you have a look at it, all the buttons were the same, the text were the same, and it was a really small next button here for the call to action. So what I've done instead is I've actually put a lot of time and effort into creating a design where it sort of represents both visually as well as with the numbers, the circles here. And these almost look the same as the logo, so that way it can feel like you're really part of the team, and the larger amounts make you feel like you want to contribute more. I've also brought in the design for the enter amount, changing the text and making the coloring with the icon much more clear, and I've added these arrows in to essentially allow for people to understand that whether they select a custom amount or manually select an amount, the next thing that they do is select this large next button. The other thing here I've done is try and keep all the colors more consistent. So instead of having this jarring red at the top, I have more of this maroon color for the cleanup progress bar as well as the menu over here. And on top of that, I've also tried to make the text a bit more clear when you're viewing it. Here it felt a little bit light and like you'd focus in on the pounds removed, but it would sort of be confusing, whereas here it's quite clear we did it. We actually reached that milestone. We've got some extra information, and this here really stands out as the amount that has been removed. Then there's additional emphasis to this big news that we previously had over here. For me, this felt like it was almost invisible in the old design, whereas for the new design, I've made this stand out nicely and clearly here right in the middle of the page. So as soon as you're reading that Z pattern on the page, you're basically moving straight to this element as you're going down the page. So I think that's great. I hope this gives you an idea of some of the design thinking that happens behind the scenes when redesigning a site. If you want me to have a look at your own site, or if you enjoyed this process, check out Enhance UI, where you can submit your own designs for me to review, or even sign up to my book, which is really close to release. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.